Hello people, my name is Rage and welcome one and all to Hearthstone Deck Building 101, the show where I theorycraft and build an interesting, different but certainly viable deck at least rank 5+, where I am testing it for you guys to learn from, either copy it yourself and make modifications. Basically, if you guys come away from this video with some new insight on the meta, some new understandings of how cards interact, some new ideas that you want to try, then I will be a happy rage face. So, what class is going to be the focus of today? Well, the answer to that is Paladin. Now, I am choosing Paladin for a few reasons. One, I like a challenge. And the reason I like a challenge and how that relates to being a Paladin is reason 2. They are by far the most underplayed class and arguably the weakest. They certainly have the least options at the moment, so I want to turn that around and come up with a Paladin deck that can actually hold its own and gain rankings at this level where the meta is really ingrained with Handlock and Zoo Warlock and Miracle Rogue and Ramp Druid and Token. There's like 6 decks, Control Warrior as well, there's like 6 decks that are just dominating, and I want to build a deck that can counter and win against that using the guise of a Paladin. So if it's called the If You Can't Beat Them, the reason it's called that is because it's going to be modelled slightly after the Zoo Warlock. A lot of early game aggression, a lot of face damage, but it's going to have some late game support and a little bit of that the justice demands retribution flair that Paladins can bring. So without further ado, let's go through this. So I am going to be building this kind of on the fly. Obviously, I've put prior thought into this, but we're going to be having the discussion and talking through my reasoning and coming up with cards. Okay, so we're going to actually start with neutral minions, and with the ever-trusty, ever-annoying, the most annoying one-drop in the world, the Argent Squire. We're going to complement that with Abusive Sergeant, as it lets the Argent Squire trade up and not also die, and then we need another few key 1-drops. Lepronome I like because it's a guaranteed 4 damage, as well as Young Priestess, simply because it's a nice buff, especially if something still has its Divine Shield on. It lets it gain health, which makes it even more difficult to get rid of, and generally, they just mix well to those 1 damage guys. A Direwolf Alpha is nice. You can add it to a charge minion to let it trade up. You can add it to these low guys, again, to let it trade up, or just generally pound away through that damage. So this is going to do it for neutral for now. It's not going to be all the neutrals, of course, but generally speaking, this is a good base to start any aggressive base deck. Now, I'm actually going to put Blessing of Mights in here because it's a good finisher, Blessing of Might on a charge, or it lets, for example, a Lepronome trade up and take out a Tazdingo, which is quite a meaty and fairly common taunt, and that is some incredible value. Now, I'm not going to be using any of the Paladin secrets because a lot of them are kind of bad, and shockingly enough, I'm not going to go for equality. One of the standards in a slower control Paladin lets you kill anything. It's too slow for this deck. It really, really is. I thought long and hard about equality, and I just don't think it should be in there. And the reason there's not 2 dire wolves is because I may end up with 2, all things considered, but right now I want to save the space because we're already up to 11 cards, and 1 Dire Wolf is always kind of nice for the reasons that I said. Now, 2 Trill Silvers just because it is a phenomenal card, and the same with Consecration. Now, an argument could be made with Blessing of Kings with this, but again, it's too slow. We want fastness with this. So, Argent Protector, because buffing these guys with shields is obviously fantastic, and Aldor Peacekeeper because turning big, beefy minions into effectively useless ones that you can ignore and go for face is great. Now, do we want stuff later on? We're not going to have any Guardian of Kings. Again, too slow. Avenging Wrath, however, is great because it's a fantastic finisher and does a hefty amount of damage. Tyrion is not going to go into the deck. Again, way too slow for the playstyle that I'm going for. Now, the Paladin card that lets this deck really work, that made me want to try it based on the current meta, we have Divine Favor. This card is lovely. Think of the current dominating meta. We have Control Warrior, we have Miracle Rogue, and we have Handlock. Let's ignore Zoolock and Druid for now. But those 3 decks, which you see all the time, what do they have in common? They hoard 8 to 10 cards in their hand at nearly all points through the game, which means you can expend your entire hand on little creatures, and then Divine Favor for another maybe 7 cards thanks to your opponent's playstyle, and just do it again. The aggression you can get out of Divine Favor is stupid. In fact, honestly, it's viable to have this as your only draw power in the entire deck. That's how good it is. The Divine Favor is really the key to letting this deck maintain the kind of tempo and aggression that the Zoo Warlock can do thanks to their hero power. So Divine Favor is definitely a necessary component. So now they're up to 23 cards, we need to round it off with a few. Blessed Champion I kind of looked at, but it's very expensive and the double is kind of gimmicky. You're not going to get very often where you're like, yes, double that 8 damage creature, boom! It just doesn't give you that kind of feel. Sword of Justice is a obvious choice when it comes to this because of the low cost of minions being buffed, but honestly, it's still kind of slow. You want to do other things with your 3 mana turn, and I'm going to leave it out of this deck. I really do. It kind of seems like it would work really well, but trust me, I just think it really is too slow to waste your turn on a 1/5 weapon, especially as you're going to be wanting your True Silvers on as soon as possible because they are such a good value card. So, next thing is to get your kind of required Charge minions. I do love a bit of Charge minions, that's fantastic. No, Charge. Leroy's going in because Leroy is Leroy, he's in like every deck and he's just ridiculously good. It really is ridiculous. 2 Agent Commanders because of course Divine Shield is annoying as hell and having that charge damage is really fantastic. So we have 4 cards left in the deck. Well, right now, what I'm going to do is put in 2 Knife Jugglers. I was saving them to last because I want to see if anyone was like, where are the Knife Jugglers, Rage? And that leaves us with 2 options. Now, this is where the curveball might happen because I'm going to put in Lorewalker Cho. I know what you're thinking, because we have Avenging Wrath, we have Consecrate, we're not giving that to our enemies, Blessing of Might, but think about it. This deck has 4 spells in, and you're only playing them in very specific situations. Avenging Wrath for a finisher, or if you're being overwhelmed, but if you're being overwhelmed, then you're losing anyway, and you're not going to have Cho on the field. Consecration, same deal, just don't play Cho against a Zoo Warlock. Against the decks that this counters, the hand-hoarding decks, Cho is fantastic because they cannot spend their spells that they're hoarding to remove you because you'll get the spells. It really throws people off their game, and it's a lovely addition. And Cho being in the deck lets me add another favourite of mine. Where is he? Come on, King Muckler. There he is, because he gives your opponents bananas. This guy is fantastic for 2 main reasons. Comboed with Cho, the bananas are a non-issue because you get them back. But against the decks that this is countering, they hoard cards. You put 2 bananas in their hand, suddenly they burn a card when they draw, and you never know, you might lose a Rogue or a Warlock, their Leroy finisher, and you have won the game at that point. It really does work well. So this is going to be our base deck for if you can't beat them, join them, just aggressive Pally rush down to the face, kill them quick, then I'm going to be trialing. After the game I'm about to play and show you with this deck, I will go through it and recommend some replacements if you don't have Leroy, if you don't have Muckler or Cho, that kind of deal, just so you know, you can still build this deck. It's a fairly cheap deck, honestly. The legendary is obviously a big deal, but these are mainly just flavor kind of nice legendaries that make it a little bit more fun, but do have good reasoning behind them. They are certainly replaceable. Avenging Wrath is the epic that we've got in here, but everything else is pretty achievable. Either way, we will go through refinement after I have shown you a game, and I will recommend you alternatives, but for now, I will hop into a game and you can see this deck in action. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, in our game, testing out this deck. Now, this may either be a fantastic example of why it works, or I may be facing the one deck that has a good matchup against this. We shall see. If he is Handlock, I'm feeling pretty good. If he is Zoolock, then we may have to worry a little bit. Now, if he is Handlock, keeping the Divine Favor is almost mandatory. So what I'm going to do is swap out the Abusive Sergeant, but keep a 1-drop, just so I do have a 1-drop, and Eldor Peacekeeper is great. I would love this guy to be Handlock. It would make everything so fantastic. Young Priestess into Knife Juggler is our opening turns. What is he going to do? Please play nothing. If he ends his turn, then it's time to fist pump the air and celebrate like a seal with a fish. End it. Come on. Please don't be Zoo. Please don't be Zoo. Yes! Okay, that's fantastic. He still might be Zoo, but it's a lot more likely that now he will be playing Handlock, which is great for us. The Knife Juggler, not something he can remove easily. If it is indeed Handlock, if he taps, it's 100% Handlock if he taps right here. Glorious. He has 8 cards in his hand, ladies and gentlemen. Turn 4 is your first golem drop, so what I'm going to do is play Argent Squire and summon one of these, and then Divine Favor next turn, and we are going to get... Actually, should I Divine Favor now? Because he has 8 cards, I'm going to draw 5 off this, which will give me a lot of answers for a lot of things, and the Aldor Peacekeeper is going to make the first golem useless. Yes, already, ladies and gentlemen, this is why this deck works so well. And we draw into the second Divine Favor. That is glorious. Look at this ridiculous draw power. The amount of counters we have right now is insane. So let's end that and see what he does. We could potentially be actually, no, there's not much he could be doing right now. He has to wait for the 4 for the first giant, and even 4 for the first... Okay, he's just going for the play. Yeah, it was a little bit of a mistake, because now you've just wasted one of your taunts, and you need those taunts to make this deck work. So I'm going to put a True Silver Champion here. It makes the most sense, and smack a bitch about. Don't take that off, that sounds really bad now, out of context actually, now that I think about it. But yes, I'm at liberty to play as many cards as I want, simply because I have this other Divine Favor already, and I am 18 cards into my deck. I have outdrawn a handlock already, which is just fantastic. So, do I care about this Azure Drake? That is the main question. And what's good about this deck as well is you are at quite a lot of liberty to simply, yeah, what I'm going to do is play that, I'm going to protect him with the shield, which makes an AoE from him quite useless, hit him because I can, and because I have the second one in my hand, thanks to the crazy draw power, and already 5 turns in, our Warlock friend is on 13 health, and he's only tapped once, if I recall. We have 2 Consecrates, which is another 8 damage, if it comes to that. We have True Silver, we have the Aldor Peacekeeper to make a giant useless, he doesn't have the mana to taunt. Thanks to that Divine Favor, we are dominating him, and it feels good. Yes, indeed. Now the question is, what's he going to do? Making that Drake have a taunt would be rather annoying, and then the Hellfire. Yeah, honestly, I genuinely thought that was what was going to happen, and that is completely fine. It really makes no difference, because what we're going to do is... okay, I have a choice here. I either Consecrate and play a Juggler, or True Silver and hit him, and then don't really do anything else, because I don't really need to do anything else. He is very killable, so right now, I'm just going to keep applying the pressure and keep hitting him in the face, because I really have no reason not to. The only worry is, from this point, is if he has a couple Molten Giants in his hand, because a double Molten Giant drop with a taunt is kind of going to be a big deal, but again, I do have a massive amount of Divine Favor to draw into my second Peacekeeper to make those Giants absolutely useless. He's going to Siphon Soul. That is how desperate he was. That is how desperate he was. But even if he had a Giant and a Taunt, it wouldn't have made a difference because of the Peacekeeper. I slowly would have worn him down. So there you go, everybody. A very, very easy, almost domination victory with this deck against a handlock, and I have to say, it keeps performing like this. I've done loads of games with this deck to test it, and it really does just hammer. I didn't even get the cute Cho sort into Muckler combo. It just really is quite solid, yes indeed. And yeah, I think it has certainly proven its worth against a hoarding type enemy, and Handlock is by far the hardest over the Hand Hoarders, the Warrior being the second hardest, and the Miracle Rogue being easier. This deck dominates Miracle Rogue. If you hate Miracle Rogue, play this deck because it dominates Miracle Rogue. They can't do anything. You win by turn 5, and even if they get their Auctioneer combo, it doesn't matter, and Cho completely shuts down Miracle Rogue. It really is fantastic. So there you go, everybody. If you can't beat them, aggressive, rushy Paladin. Now, if you want some card choices, if you don't have the legendaries, Avenging Wrath is kind of replaceable. It's not too ridiculously key. What I would replace it with, honestly, it's not the easiest thing to decide. Maybe one Guardian of Kings, it's about the same mana, and it has kind of the same, you know, you heal yourself 6 instead of doing the damage, but maybe a Holy Wrath if you're feeling lucky. It's not the easiest card to replace, is what I'm saying, but it's also not mandatory to have it. Leroy is very easily replaceable with a Arcane Golem, or if you don't want to give your opponent the Mana Crystal, a few Wolf Riders, depending on how you want to shuffle your deck. Muckler, again, is very replaceable by potentially, honestly, a Wolf Rider, because it's the same mana cost, you get the same damage out of it. Tried to put a Gold Chair Footman in my deck. It's not happening. Honestly, I would take Muckler out and put in a Blood Knight, and maybe a Big Game Hunter to get past Druids and Handlocks. I realise I'm recommending epic replacements here. If you really can't afford an epic, then maybe something like an Acolyte of Pain, just to complement your draw power. Again, that's not really necessary. A Flesh-Eating Ghoul. Harvest Golem, probably the biggest replacement there, because he does have the 5 damage across his 2 forms. Shattered Sun would also be as good. And then replacement for Lorewalker Cho, I would simply go with Blood Mage Thalnos if you happen to have that legendary, and if not, something like a Doomsayer, completely shutting down enemy zoo so you have more time, or a Fairy Dragon. Probably Fairy Dragon is what I would recommend. He's not the most key card in this deck. In fact, no. Iron Beak Owl, then you have a silence to bash through some taunts. In fact, putting an Iron Beak Owl instead of the Direwolf may be something I'm going to do, just because it might give me that little edge. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any questions about this deck, ask them in the comments, and yeah, if you can't beat them, Paladin, an aggressive, in-your-face deck with a Paladin flair. Yes, indeed. So my name has been Rage. Let me know how you enjoyed this. Please remember to like if you enjoyed it. It really does help me with YouTube's silly system, so I do appreciate it. Subscribe if for more, and yeah, let me know what clash you would like to see in the next deck building, and I'll maybe come up with something quite fun. It won't always be as terrifically viable as this one, but it will always certainly be fun, and at least you'll learn something. So there you go, everybody. My name has been Rage. I will see you all next time. Goodbye.